The call came on a Tuesday evening, just as I was finishing up another grueling 12-hour shift at the hospital. I'm a nurse, which means I'm used to difficult conversations about organ donation. I just never expected to be on the receiving end of one. My name is Grace, and I've spent my entire life being the other daughter. You know the type, the one whose report cards were never quite good enough, whose achievements somehow always fell short of her sisters. Livia, my older sister, was the golden child. Still is, actually. She's got the perfect career as a corporate lawyer, the perfect house in the suburbs, and our parents' perfect unconditional love. Grace, honey, we need to talk to you about something important. My mother's voice wavered through the phone. Can you come over tonight? I glanced at the clock, 8:45 p.m. Mom, I just got off work. Can't this wait until tomorrow? It's about Livia, my father cut in, and I realized I was on speakerphone. Of course it was about Livia. When wasn't it? She's sick, Grace, really sick. 20 minutes later, I was sitting in their pristine living room, still in my scrubs, facing both my parents on their leather couch. The same couch where they'd sat through countless recitals of Livia's perfect piano performances while I watched from the stairs. Kidney failure, my father explained, his usually commanding voice uncharacteristically soft. She needs a transplant. My mother reached for my hand. We've all been tested, but none of us are a match. You're our last hope, sweetie. I pulled my hand away, my mind racing. Where is Livia now? At home with her husband. She doesn't know we're asking you yet. My father leaned forward. We wanted to approach you first. Make sure you'd be willing to help your sister. Help my sister, I repeated slowly, tasting the words. 28 years of being the backup plan, the safety net, the second choice. It all crystallized in that moment. Of course you'll help her, my mother said, as if it were already decided. She's your sister. I stood up, smoothing my scrubs. I'll consider it, but only with a legal agreement in place. The silence that followed was deafening. A what? My father's face reddened. This is family, Grace. We don't need legal documents between family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Actually, that's exactly when we need them most. I want everything in writing, the surgery, the recovery, the aftercare. And I want Livia to know the full terms before I agree to anything. I can't believe what I'm hearing, my mother's voice cracked. Your sister needs you, and you're treating this like a business transaction? No, Mom, I'm treating it like what it is. Major surgery with life-altering consequences. I grabbed my bag from the floor. I've seen too many donors get burned because they didn't protect themselves. I'm not going to be one of them. Grace Weber. My father stood up, using his full height to tower over me. This is your sister's life we're talking about. Exactly. Her life, not mine. I headed for the door. Let me know when you're ready to discuss this properly, with lawyers present. My mother's sob followed me out. How can you be so selfish? I paused at the doorway, my hand on the knob. Funny, I've been asking myself the same thing about all of you for years. The drive home was a blur. My phone buzzed repeatedly. First my mother, then my father, finally Livia herself. I ignored them all and called Whitney instead. You did what? My best friend's voice was equal parts shocked and proud. Holy shit, Grace! Am I wrong? I pulled into my apartment complex, suddenly exhausted. Should I just say yes, like they expect me to? Hell no, Whitney said firmly. You're asking for basic protection. If they can't handle that, it says more about them than you. I sighed, leaning my head against the steering wheel. I should probably get tested first anyway, right? Before we even discuss legal stuff? Absolutely. One step at a time. There was a pause. You okay? Yeah, I said, but my voice cracked. No, I don't know. It's just, why is it always about her? Because they made it that way, Whitney replied softly. But you're changing the rules now, and honestly, it's about damn time. I ended the call and checked my messages. 12 missed calls, 23 texts, all variations of guilt and manipulation. The last one was from Livia. How could you do this to me? I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Tomorrow, I'd schedule the compatibility test. Tomorrow, I'd start setting boundaries. Tomorrow, I'd finally stand up for myself. But tonight? Tonight, I'd let myself feel the weight of being the family disappointment one last time. 3 days of silence followed before my father finally called. I was having coffee with Whitney at our usual spot when his name flashed across my phone screen. "They're caving," Whitney mouthed, gesturing for me to answer. "Grace," my father's voice was strained. "We've discussed your conditions. Your mother and I are willing to meet with lawyers present." I stirred my coffee slowly. "And Livia?" "She'll be there." He cleared his throat. "I've scheduled a meeting for tomorrow afternoon at Richardson and Associates, 3 o'clock. I work tomorrow. I'm sure you can get someone to cover your shift. This is important." I caught Whitney's eye and she nodded encouragingly. "Fine, but I'm bringing my own lawyer." "For God's sake, Grace." He stopped himself. "Fine. Whatever you need." After hanging up, Whitney reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're doing the right thing. Don't let them make you doubt yourself." Easy for you to say. You don't have to sit through a family meeting with lawyers tomorrow. "Actually," Whitney grinned, "remember my cousin Nick? The one who just passed the bar? He's willing to represent you." I nearly choked on my coffee. "Your cousin Nick? The one I dated in college?" "The very same. He specializes in family law now and he's good. Really good." My stomach churned at the thought of involving my ex, but I needed someone I could trust. Someone who wouldn't be intimidated by my father's connections or my mother's tears. "Fine," I sighed. "Set it up." The next day, I walked into the law firm's conference room to find my family already seated. My mother's eyes were red-rimmed, my father looked like he'd aged 10 years, and Livia was pale but perfectly put together, as always. Nick arrived moments after me, looking sharp in his suit and carrying a briefcase. My father's eyebrows shot up in recognition. "Nicholas," he said coldly. "Mr. Weber." Nick pulled out a chair for me before sitting down himself. "Shall we begin?" The family lawyer, Mr. Richardson, cleared his throat. "We're here to discuss the terms of Grace's kidney donation to her sister Livia." "If I'm a match," I interrupted, "I haven't been tested yet." "When will you do that?" Livia spoke for the first time, her voice tight. "I've scheduled it for next week." "Next week?" My mother's hand flew to her chest. "Why are you dragging this out?" Nick placed a hand on my arm. "Mrs. Weber, with all due respect, organ donation is a serious matter. Grace is entitled to proceed at her own pace." "These are my terms," I said, pulling out a document Nick had helped me prepare. "First, all my medical expenses are covered, including any future complications that might arise from the surgery." "Of course," my father nodded. "Second, I need 3 months paid leave from work for recovery, my salary, not short-term disability rates." Livia's husband shifted uncomfortably. "That's a lot of money." "Third," I continued, ignoring him, "I want a written agreement that this ends the family debt. No more guilt trips, no more expectations, no more being the family backup plan." "Family debt?" My mother's voice rose. "Is that how you see us? As some sort of burden?" "Mom," Livia started, but I cut her off. "Yes, that's exactly how I see it. Because that's how you've treated me my entire life. Like I owe you something for simply existing in Livia's shadow." The room fell silent. Nick squeezed my arm supportively. "These terms are reasonable," Mr. Richardson finally said. "We can draft an agreement incorporating all these points." "Fine," my father said tersely. "Anything else?" I stood up, gathering my things. "Yes, I want a DNA test done alongside the compatibility screening." "What?" My mother's face went white. "Why would you need that?" "Standard procedure," Nick jumped in smoothly. "It helps establish genetic compatibility." But I saw it, the flash of panic in my mother's eyes, the way my father's hands clenched under the table. Something wasn't right. "We'll have the paperwork ready by the time you get your test results," Mr. Richardson said, ending the meeting. Outside, Nick pulled me aside. "You saw that too, right? Their reaction to the DNA test?" I nodded, my heart pounding. Something's off. I don't know what, but want me to do some digging? I thought about my mother's face, about years of feeling like an outsider in my own family. Yes. Find out everything you can. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Whitney. How'd it go? I typed back. They agreed to everything, too easily, and Mom freaked about the DNA test. Her response was immediate. Holy shit. You thinking what I'm thinking? I was. But I wasn't ready to face those implications. Not yet. First, I had a compatibility test to get through. And maybe, just maybe, it would answer more questions than anyone was prepared for. The manila envelope sat on my coffee table like a ticking bomb. I'd been staring at it for 20 minutes when Whitney let herself in with the spare key. You haven't opened it yet? She set down a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. The clinic called hours ago. I can't. My hands were shaking. You do it. Whitney picked up the envelope and tore it open, pulling out several pages of medical jargon. Her eyes scanned the document, widening as she reached the bottom. Grace, she hesitated. You're not a match. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Okay, that's... okay. These things happen, right? There's more. Whitney's voice was careful, measured. The genetic markers. They're showing no familial relationship at all. The room started spinning. What? According to this, you and Livia aren't biologically related. At all. I grabbed the papers from her hands, reading the results myself. The clinical language blurred before my eyes, but certain phrases stood out stark and clear. No genetic compatibility, absence of shared markers, 0 indication of biological relationship. My phone buzzed. Nick calling. I put it on speaker. Grace? I found something. His voice crackled through the speaker. I've been looking into your family records, and there are some irregularities around the time of your birth. Whitney poured 2 generous glasses of wine as I asked, what kind of irregularities? Hospital records? Birth certificates? Something's not adding up. And I found a connection to someone named Isabel Fuller. She was apparently very close to your parents around that time. Isabel Fuller? The name triggered something. Wait, Mom's old friend? The one who moved away when I was little? That's her. And get this, she worked at the hospital where you were born. My hands were trembling so badly I had to set down my wine glass. Nick, can you find her? Already did. She's living about 2 hours away. I have her address. Whitney grabbed my keys from the counter. I'm driving. Text us the address, Nick. The 2-hour drive felt like an eternity. Whitney kept glancing at me, opening her mouth to speak, then thinking better of it. My phone buzzed repeatedly. My parents, probably wondering about the test results. I ignored every call. We found Isabel's house just as the sun was setting. It was a small, well-kept cottage with flowering bushes out front. An older woman with silver hair opened the door before we could knock. I've been expecting you, she said softly. I saw your name on a records request. Come in. Her living room was cozy, filled with photos. My eyes landed on one that made my heart stop. Isabel with my parents, all of them younger, my mother clearly pregnant. You know why I'm here, I said. It wasn't a question. Isabel nodded, pouring tea into delicate cups. I've carried this secret for 28 years. Perhaps it's time. What secret? My voice cracked. Please, just tell me. She took a deep breath. Your mother, she wasn't pregnant with you. I helped arrange your adoption. The teacup clattered in my hands. Whitney steadied it. But my birth certificate was altered, Isabel finished. Your father had connections. It was easier that way, especially with Livia being only 2. They wanted people to believe you were both their biological children. Why? The word came out as a whisper. Your mother had complications after Livia. Couldn't have more children. They were desperate for another daughter, but wanted to keep it quiet. Small towns, you know how people talk. My whole world was unraveling. Does Livia know? No one knows except your parents and me. And now you. Isabel reached for my hand. I'm sorry. I wanted to tell you so many times. That's why they moved away, Whitney said suddenly. Why they cut contact with you. They were afraid you'd tell. Isabel nodded sadly. They said it was better this way. Clean break. I stood up abruptly, nearly knocking over my tea. I need to go. Grace, Isabel called as we reached the door. There's more you should know about your biological parents. I turned back, my heart pounding. They didn't abandon you, she said softly. They died. Car accident, just days after you were born. You were their only child. The drive home was silent except for my quiet sobs. Whitney kept one hand on my shoulder as she drove. My phone buzzed again, a text from my mother. Did you get the test results? I stared at the message, anger replacing shock. 28 years of lies. 28 years of feeling like I didn't belong, and now I knew why. What are you going to do? Whitney asked quietly. I typed out my response. We need to talk, all of us, tomorrow. It was time for the truth to come out, all of it. I couldn't face my family yet, not without knowing everything. Nick met Whitney and me at a 24-hour diner, spreading documents across the table between plates of untouched food. Your adoption wasn't just private, he said, sliding over a stack of papers. It was completely off the books. No agency involvement, no court records, nothing. How is that even possible? Whitney asked, scanning the documents. Money? Lots of it. Nick pointed to a bank statement. Your father made a massive withdrawal the week you were born, $200,000 cash. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. They bought me? Not exactly. Nick lowered his voice. I think they paid to make the paperwork disappear, to erase any trace of your biological parents. But why? I pushed my plate away. Isabel said they died. Why go to such lengths to hide that? Nick pulled out another document. Because of who they were. I found this in an old newspaper archive. The yellowed clipping showed a car accident report. 2 names jumped out at me, Michael and Sarah Reynolds. My breath caught. They shared my original middle name. They were investigative journalists, Nick continued, working on a big story when they died. The accident was suspicious. Suspicious how? Brake lines were cut. Police investigated, but nothing came of it. He hesitated. Your father was a corporate lawyer back then. Some of his biggest clients were companies your biological parents were investigating. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Whitney grabbed my hand under the table. I need to know more, I said. About my real parents. I can help with that. Nick pulled out his phone. But first, there's someone else we should talk to. Remember Mrs. Patterson from the hospital records department? 20 minutes later, we were video chatting with a retired nurse who remembered everything. Of course I remember that night, she said, her face serious on the screen. Hard to forget. Young couple brought in after the crash, their baby just days old. Then your father shows up with all these papers, saying he's handling their estate. Did you suspect anything wrong? I asked. Honey, I knew something was wrong. But your father had the hospital administrator in his pocket. Next thing I know, records are changed, babies are switched around in the system, and everyone's told to keep quiet. Switched around? Whitney leaned forward. What do you mean? Mrs. Patterson looked uncomfortable. There was another baby in the nursery that night. Similar age, similar looks. Records got confused. Deliberately confused. My head was spinning. Are you saying there's another baby out there somewhere? No, dear. I'm saying you weren't the only baby whose paperwork was changed that night. Nick's head snapped up. Livia, he breathed. She was 2, you said? Are you sure about that age? Ice spread through my veins as the pieces started falling into place. Nick, what are you thinking? I need to make some calls. He was already dialing. Don't confront your parents yet. There's more here, I'm sure of it. After he left, Whitney drove me home. We sat in her car outside my apartment, neither speaking for a long moment. You know what this means, right? She finally said. If they changed Livia's records too, she might not be their biological daughter either. The words felt surreal leaving my mouth. But why? Why take 2 babies, create fake papers, hide everything? My phone buzzed. A text from Isabel. There's something else you need to know. Something about your sister. Come back tomorrow? Because they're hiding something bigger, I replied to Whitney, showing her the text. Something that connects it all. Whitney started the car again. Want me to drive you to Isabel's tomorrow? No. I typed out a reply to Isabel. I'll be there at noon. You sure? You shouldn't do this alone. I'm not alone. I managed a weak smile. I've got you and Nick, and maybe I've got two real parents who were trying to expose something important when they died. Grace. Whitney hesitated. Be careful. If what Nick's suggesting is true, if your father was involved in covering up something that got your biological parents killed, then I need to know. For them. For me. I opened my car door. And for Livia. Whatever the truth is, she deserves to know too. As I walked to my apartment, another text came through, from my mother. Please, Grace, tell us about the test results. We're worried. I stared at the message, thinking about all their lies, all their secrets. About two sets of parents, two babies, and a truth buried under decades of deception. Tomorrow, I typed back. We'll talk tomorrow. But first, I had another conversation with Isabel. One that would finally reveal why my parents had gone to such lengths to hide the truth. Not just about me, but about Livia too. Isabel was waiting on her porch when I arrived, clutching a worn leather journal. Her hands trembled as she handed it to me. Your biological mother's, she explained. She gave it to me for safekeeping, just days before the accident. Said if anything happened to her, I should make sure the truth came out. I opened the journal, my heart racing. Pages of neat handwriting detailed an investigation into corporate fraud, money laundering, and something called Project Legacy. Your father, your adoptive father, was representing a pharmaceutical company, Isabel said quietly. They were conducting illegal trials on pregnant women. Your biological parents were close to exposing everything. What does this have to do with Livia? Isabel's eyes filled with tears. She was one of the babies, born to one of the trial participants who died during childbirth. Your father was tasked with making her disappear, along with all evidence of the trials. My phone buzzed. Nick calling. I put him on speaker. Grace, I found it, he said urgently. Birth records for a Jane Doe baby, born the same day as Livia's supposed birth date. Mother died in childbirth at Memorial Hospital. All records were sealed by court order. By my father? My voice cracked. Yes. And get this. The pharmaceutical company he represented made a $10 million payment to an offshore account that same week. Isabel nodded grimly. He took Livia home, convinced your mother they could raise her as their own. But then your biological parents got too close to the truth. So they had them killed, I finished, feeling sick. And took me, too, to create a perfect cover story. Two sisters, 2 years apart. Grace, Nick's voice was gentle. There's more. The pharmaceutical company? They're still operating, and Livia's kidney failure. It matches a pattern of symptoms in children born to trial participants. Everything clicked into place. The overprotectiveness, the golden child treatment, the desperate need for my kidney. They weren't just hiding a crime, they were hiding its consequences. I have to confront them, I said, standing up. Now. Be careful, Isabel pleaded. Your father, he's dangerous when cornered. I drove to my parents' house in a daze, the journal on my passenger seat like a ticking bomb. They were all there, mother, father, and Livia, having dinner as if nothing was wrong. Grace, my mother stood up. Finally, we've been so worried. What did the test results say? I placed the journal on the table. Why don't you tell me about Project Legacy? The color drained from my father's face. My mother dropped her fork. Where did you get that? His voice was deadly quiet. From my real mother, the one you had killed. Livia looked between us, confused. What's going on? Tell her, I demanded. Tell her everything. About the trials, about her real mother, about my parents. Tell her why she's really sick. Grace, please, my mother begged. We were trying to protect you both. Protect us? I laughed bitterly. By building our entire lives on lies? By watching Livia get sick from something you knew might happen? What is she talking about? Livia's voice shook. Dad? My father stood up slowly. Everything I did for this family. No, I shot back. You did it for money. $10 million, right? That's what a baby was worth to you? You don't understand, he started, but I cut him off. I understand perfectly. You helped cover up illegal trials that killed innocent women. You had my parents murdered when they discovered the truth. You took 2 babies and erased their identities. And now one of them is dying because of what those trials did to her mother. Livia ran to the bathroom, retching. My mother followed her, sobbing. You have no idea what you've done, my father said, his face dark with anger. No, you have no idea what you've done, I shot back. But you're about to find out. Nick's already sent everything to the FBI, the journal, the bank records, everything. His hand slammed down on the table. You stupid girl. Do you think you're the first person to try exposing this? Do you think your biological parents were the only ones who died trying? Are you threatening me? I'm warning you, he growled. Walk away, now. Before what? Livia stood in the doorway, pale but steady. Before you kill her too, Dad? Like you killed her parents? The sound of police sirens filled the air. My father lunged for his phone, but I was faster, grabbing the journal. It's over, I said, backing toward the door. The truth is out, and this time, you can't bury it. As police cars pulled up outside, I looked at Livia. I'm sorry, about everything. She wiped her tears, straightening her shoulders. No, I'm sorry, but now we both know who we really are. And who we really were, it turned out, was stronger than any lie they'd built our lives upon. The next 48 hours passed in a blur of police statements, FBI interviews, and media chaos. Whitney let Livia and me stay at her place, away from the reporters camping outside our homes. They're calling it the Legacy Scandal, Nick said, showing us the headlines on his tablet. Pharmaceutical company stocks are crashing. Your father's law firm is under investigation, and that's just the beginning. Livia sat curled in an armchair, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Have they found my real mother's family yet? The FBI is working on it, Nick replied gently, but after 28 years. I know. She wrapped her arms around herself. I just want to know where I came from. My phone buzzed. Isabel calling. There's someone here you both need to meet, she said without preamble. Can you come over? 30 minutes later, we were sitting in Isabel's living room facing an elderly woman with Livia's eyes. My name is Margaret, she said, her hands trembling around her teacup. I was a nurse at the hospital during the trials. Your mother was my daughter, Livia. Livia's breath caught. You're my grandmother? I've been searching for you for so long, Margaret's voice broke. They told me you died with your mother, but when I saw the news... They fell into each other's arms, sobbing. I watched through my own tears as Livia finally found a piece of her past. There's more, Margaret said, pulling back to look at both of us. I kept records, names, dates, details of the trials. I've been gathering evidence for years, trying to prove what they did. Why didn't you come forward before? I asked. They threatened my other children, but now, with everything coming out... She pulled out a thick folder. This is everything I know about both your mothers, about the trials, about what really happened. Nick, who'd come with us, started photographing the documents. This is incredible. The FBI needs to see this. Your mother was my daughter's friend, Margaret told me. They were both journalists, both pregnant, both determined to expose the truth. When your parents died, I suspected, but I couldn't prove anything. And my mother? Livia asked softly. What was she like? Beautiful, brave. She volunteered for the trials because she believed they were legitimate cancer research. By the time she discovered the truth, it was too late. My phone buzzed again, a news alert. My father had been arrested trying to flee the country. My mother was cooperating with authorities. They're saying at least 30 women died in those trials, Nick said, reading from his phone, and dozens of babies. Most didn't survive, Margaret confirmed grimly. You two were among the few who did. That's why they went to such lengths to hide you. But why keep us? I wondered aloud. Why not just... Because your father needed insurance, Margaret replied. Living proof that the trials were successful in case the company ever needed it. And you, Grace, keeping you meant controlling the narrative about your parents' deaths. Livia stood up suddenly. I need to know everything. About the trials, about what they did to my mother, about why I'm sick now. We have your medical records, Nick said. With these documents, we can prove the connection. Get you proper treatment. It won't just be treatment, Margaret said. There will be lawsuits, investigations. The company will have to acknowledge what they did, compensate the victims' families. Good, I said firmly. Let them pay. Let everyone know the truth. My phone buzzed one final time, a text from my mother. I'm so sorry for everything. When you're ready, I'll tell you both everything I know. I showed the message to Livia. She took my hand, squeezing it tight. We're not their perfect little family anymore, she said quietly. No, I agreed. We're something better. We're survivors. Margaret smiled through her tears. Your mothers would be so proud of you both. As we left Isabel's house that evening, reporters were already gathering outside. The story was exploding. Decades of corporate corruption, medical malpractice, murder and cover-ups, all unraveling because I'd asked for a simple DNA test. What happens now? Livia asked as we drove away. Now we fight, I replied. For justice, for truth, for all the mothers and babies who didn't survive, and for us to finally live our lives without lies. Together? She sounded uncertain, as if our shared trauma might not be enough to bridge the years of forced rivalry. Together, I confirmed. We might not be sisters by blood, but we're connected by something stronger. The truth our mothers died trying to expose. The setting sun painted the sky blood red as we drove home, leaving behind the weight of old lies and stepping into the light of new truths. Our story wasn't over, it was just beginning. The courthouse was packed for my father's bail hearing. Livia and I sat in the back row, watching as the man who raised us shuffled in wearing handcuffs. The defendant poses a significant flight risk, the prosecutor argued. We've uncovered multiple offshore accounts and properties under aliases. My mother sat alone on the other side of the courtroom, looking small and broken. She'd been granted immunity in exchange for her testimony. Did you know? I'd asked her yesterday during a supervised visit. About my parents? About what he did? Not at first, she'd whispered. By the time I figured it out, we were in too deep. He said if I ever told anyone, he'd make sure I lost both of you. Now, as the judge denied bail, my father turned to look at us. His eyes were cold, calculating, the eyes of a stranger. Multiple victims' families have come forward, Nick whispered, sliding into the seat beside me. The pharmaceutical company's internal documents confirm everything. They're offering a settlement. I don't want their money, Livia said firmly. I want them to pay for what they did to our mothers. The judge's gavel cracked through the air. My father was being led away when he suddenly stopped, turning to face the courtroom. Everything I did was legal, he announced. Every document signed, every agreement made. Legal? Margaret stood up from her seat. Was it legal when you watched my daughter die? When you stole her baby? Order! The judge commanded, but more people were standing now. What about my sister? A woman shouted. What about her baby? The bailiffs rushed to restore order as my father was hurried out. Through the chaos, I saw my mother approaching. There's something else you need to know, she said urgently. Something about the company's current trials. Nick pulled out his phone to record as she continued. They never stopped, she revealed, her voice shaking. They just moved operations overseas. There are more women, more babies. Mrs. Weber, a stern-faced FBI agent interrupted. We need to discuss this in private. As they led her away, Livia grabbed my arm. We have to stop them. All of them. We will, I promised. But first, we need to tell our story. The whole story. That evening, we sat down with a prominent investigative journalist. The irony wasn't lost on me, in Whitney's living room. Start from the beginning, the journalist said, recording device ready. Livia went first, describing her recent diagnosis, the desperate search for a donor. I followed with the DNA test revelation, then Margaret shared her decades-long quest for justice. "And now?" the journalist asked. "What do you want to happen?" "We want the truth exposed," I said firmly. "Not just about what happened 30 years ago, but about what's still happening now." "Your father's facing multiple charges," she noted. "Murder, conspiracy, fraud. He could serve life in prison." "Good," Livia said quietly. "But he's just one person. The company executives, the doctors who ran the trials, the lawyers who covered it up, they all need to face justice." My phone buzzed. A text from Isabel. "Turn on the news." Whitney grabbed the remote. Breaking news headlines flashed across the screen. Pharmaceutical giant CEO arrested. Global investigation launched. Victims coming forward worldwide. "It's happening," Margaret breathed. "After all these years, it's finally happening." The journalist leaned forward. "Would you be willing to testify, both of you? Your story could help bring down the entire operation." Livia and I exchanged looks. In her eyes, I saw the same determination I felt. "Yes," we said together. "It won't be easy," Nick warned. "They'll try to discredit you, intimidate you." "They've been controlling our lives since before we were born," I cut in. "Not anymore." "Besides," Livia added with a grim smile, "what can they do to us now? Kill us like they killed our mothers? The whole world is watching." The journalist closed her notebook. "This will be the biggest medical scandal in decades. Are you ready for what comes next?" I thought about my biological parents, brave journalists who died seeking the truth. About Livia's mother, who gave her life trying to protect her unborn child. About all the other victims, named and unnamed. "We were born into this fight," I said. "It's time we finished it." As the journalist left, promising the story would run tomorrow, Livia turned to me. "Remember when all this started, with me needing a kidney?" I nodded. "Funny how things work out," she said softly. "We didn't turn out to be a match, but we matched in a different way. Two daughters of women who died fighting the same evil." "Two sisters," I corrected her. "Maybe not by blood, but by choice, by truth. Tomorrow our story would break. Tomorrow the world would know. But tonight, we were just two women, bound by tragedy and triumph, ready to carry on our mother's fight for justice." The verdict came down like thunder in the packed courtroom. "Guilty on all counts," the judge declared, and I felt Livia's hand tighten in mine. My father stood emotionless as the sentences were read out. Life imprisonment without possibility of parole. Behind him, 3 pharmaceutical executives and 2 other lawyers received similar sentences. Justice delivered 1 count at a time. "The court would like to acknowledge the courage of the witnesses," the judge continued, "particularly Grace and Livia, whose testimony was instrumental in exposing this conspiracy." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us. Margaret stepped forward, shielding us both. "My daughter died trying to expose this truth," she announced clearly. "Her friend died for the same cause. Today, their daughters finished what they started." Nick appeared with urgent news. "The international investigation just identified 3 more trial sites. They're shutting them down right now. Hundreds of women are being rescued." Livia swayed slightly. Her health had been declining, but a new treatment program, developed specifically for trial victims, was showing promise. "Your mother would be so proud," Margaret told her, steadying her. "Both your mothers would be." My phone buzzed. A message from my mother, who'd been relocated under witness protection after death threats from her former social circle. "Watching the news. Thank you for being braver than I ever was." I showed Livia the message. She nodded slowly. "I forgive her," she said. "Not for me, but for us. We can't move forward carrying all this anger." Whitney pushed through the crowd. "You need to see this." She held up her tablet, showing a live stream from the pharmaceutical company's headquarters. Former employees were walking out in handcuffs while protesters cheered. Decades of corruption crumbling in real time. "But that's not all," Whitney said excitedly. "Show them, Nick." Nick pulled out a folder. "Remember those offshore accounts? We traced them. The money's being seized and converted into a victim compensation fund. But more importantly," he handed me a document. "We found this." My hands shook as I read. It was a letter written by my biological mother the day before she died. My dearest Grace, it began, if you're reading this, something has happened to us, but know that everything we did to protect you and countless others. The truth cannot stay buried forever. Love, Mom. There's more, Nick said softly. Livia, your mother wrote one too. As Livia read her letter, tears streaming down her face, Margaret hugged us both. You're not alone anymore. You never were. A familiar voice called out, Grace, Livia. Isabel approached with a small group of people, other children of trial victims, all grown now, all carrying their own stories. We're starting a foundation, one woman explained, to support medical research transparency and protect whistleblowers. We want you both on the board. Together? Livia asked, looking at me. Together, I confirmed. It's what our mothers would have done. That evening, we gathered at Margaret's house, our newfound family of choice. Whitney brought wine, Nick ordered pizza, and Isabel shared more stories about our mother's friendship. To think, Livia mused, all this started because you demanded a legal agreement for a kidney donation. Sometimes the smallest acts of standing up for yourself reveal the biggest truths, Whitney said. My phone buzzed one last time, a news alert. The pharmaceutical company was declaring bankruptcy. Their entire board faced criminal charges. Worldwide investigations were launching into similar trials. It's really over, I breathed. No, Livia corrected, pulling out her mother's letter. It's just beginning. We have their work to continue, their legacy to honor. Speaking of legacy, Nick interrupted, the foundation needs a name. Margaret smiled. I have a suggestion. The Truth Seekers Foundation, in memory of Sarah and Rebecca. Our mothers' names. Together, like they had been in life, like we were now. Perfect, Livia and I said simultaneously. As conversation flowed around us, I looked at our unlikely family. Margaret, who never gave up searching. Isabel, who kept the truth safe until we were ready. Whitney and Nick, who stood by us through everything. And Livia, no longer the golden child, no longer my rival, but my sister in every way that mattered. You know what? Livia said quietly. I'm glad we weren't a match for the kidney donation. Why? Because we matched in a better way. We matched in courage, in determination, in the will to expose the truth no matter the cost. Just like our mothers, I agreed. Outside, reporters were still camped out. Tomorrow would bring more investigations, more revelations, more work to be done. But tonight, in this room full of love and truth and justice, we were exactly where we needed to be. Two daughters, carrying forward their mother's legacy of courage. Two sisters, bound not by blood, but by something stronger. The unshakable power of truth. The end of one story, the beginning of another. But this time, we'd write it together.